Andries, we welcome you to Northwest University and then specifically Optentia, and you're extraordinary professor in Optentia and specifically in the sub-program Aging and Generational Dynamics. And of course, as you know, one of the themes in this sub-program is care.
Yeah.
So, you're the father of two beautiful sons. So Paul and Pepijn.
I am.
Yes, and you're also the father of the presence theory, or the theory of presence. Tell us a bit more, the core aspects of this theory.
Thank you very much. The theory of presence is about caring, and it is a specific way about caring, namely caring in a relational way. That's the most short definition I can imagine. It is about relational caring. That sounds rather familiar and not very spectacular.
Yeah.
But in essence, it's rather spectacular. If you say, I take care for you, but I don't start with my expertise as a social worker, I don't start with where there is any grant or subsidy for, I don't start with the things I have in my head, I start with establishing a relation. I want in that relation understand who you are, what your needs are, what your desires are, what your problems are, what your strengths is. So in relating, you may learn more or less what you should do and what of all your expertise you are going to use in order to offer care. So caring in a relational way is always care that starts with relating. And you have to look for people in their related form. So you don't say you have a patient, we say he's father, he has children, he has his honor, he has his job. So if I'm caring for him, I'm caring for somebody in a relational network. That in essence is what the theory is about.
Andries, you also refer to the contextual, situational nature of presence.
Yes, it's true. Well, we do so because we have many reasons for that, to be honest, but one of the main reasons is you don't have just a patient. There is no abstract patient, there's no abstract moral actor. There's always somebody with his loyalties, with his family, with his dream, with his history. And here in South Africa, I have learned that it's even more necessary to look at people, to try to care for people in their context. And that context we take it further broad. It's not just the social context,
That's right.
It's the history too, it's your loyalties. And for instance, if you want to be a Christian or if you want to be a good father, that is part of the context. So you may not say, I just have a patient. No, you have a patient who tries to be a good father laying in my bed. So,
Andries, and then what I really find interesting is that you differentiate between the theory of presence and then the presence approach. If you can clarify that a bit.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to start with the theory of presence is made out of empirical data, so to say. It is a grounded theory. We have inductively, from scratch on, built that theory with many interviews, many cases and things like that. So the theory itself is not made from other theories, although we all read our books and we all have intertextualities, but
refer to.
Yeah, we refer to that, and sometimes we look for support, sometimes we look for specific concepts, but essentially the theory is the inductive thing. And then you have the theory, and then people ask me and they say, well, you have made a beautiful theory, but unhappily it's 1,000 pages. Can't you make a method? And then they ask for a method, or a procedure, or a list with things that you have to think about to do.
To be able to operationalize the theory.
Exactly, exactly. And they think if we have the methods or we have the procedure, then we just copy paste, and we do it. And I think that's not what you should do. So from the beginning on, I thought, no, it's not a method. But what is it? And then we say it's a kind of approach. If you look to the Greek word method, it's according to the way, to its end. And with an approach, you say, well, I try to approach it. I try to come as close as I can, but I know in the end I will not reach it. If you are looking for good care, you may try to approach it ethically, social, technically, with procedures, with law, but you don't get it. And in an approach, you have to look where you are, you have to look what it's all about, and that's what we want people to do. So the approach is the more practical thing without being a method.
Okay. Yes.
That's simply said, it's, of course, it's much more difficult.
That's right.
But for now...
No, thank you, that's very helpful. And how does this all relate to an ethics of care?
Yeah. Well, what I made, so to say, or what is generated from all those data, is a theory of presence. And I was, in the years that I was making it, so we are talking about the 90s, I was looking for the most familiar frame to support the theory. And so I became, by incident, to be honest, I became an early adapter of the ethics of care. In those years, 1994, the famous book of Joan Tronto was published, and I read it immediately, and I thought, what she is saying about relational
and situational
and political, there are more things, what she is saying about the boundary between private and public, that's exactly what I tried to do. So in the book of the 90s, I have decided to say the underpinnings, the ethical underpinnings of the theory of presence is the ethics of care. And that was in the 90s. Afterward, when the book was published and it turned out to be a success, I thought, I am contributing to the ethics of care. So it's not only the underpinning, but now for me it's even one of those aims. I want to contribute to the development of the ethics of care. And because I'm not a full-blown ethicist, I'm much more empirical, I'm much more in the lived life, so to say. I think that I might have, or I already have, a specific, typical contribution to the development of the
especially through your empirical approach.
Yeah, that's one of the most distinguished differentiations, the ethics. And that is, when we had our series of lectures in Oxford, I have tried to explain why you should be an ethicist on an empirical basis.
That's right. Fascinating.
Yeah, it's rather fascinating, and some say it's cursing in the church. You shouldn't do that. They say ethics is not about empirical things, and we say if you want to be a good ethicist, if you want to think about good care, I'm not talking about dilemmas, good care, then you have to know what's going on in reality and how people in essence are taking care for each other. I want to add one more little sentence. I am going to talk about Ubuntu, and to be honest, I think I should do. I am not in the Netherlands, I'm here, so I think I should do. But it's a little bit risky, and I do my utmost, but I'm looking forward to your feedback, to your critics, to your remarks, to your suggestions of improvement. Come on. As you can see, I am white, I am male, I am a philosopher of the continent, and that's all that is in many ways contested by Ubuntu. So who am I to talk about Ubuntu? But I give it a try.
Let's get to tonight, your
Yeah.
prestige lecture as extraordinary professor here at Northwest University, Optancia. And that will focus on Ubuntu.
Yes.
And I'm now very curious, you know, having spoken about the ethics of care, how do you see a relationship between the ethics of care and the Afrocentric idea of Ubuntu?
Well, I'm studying on Ubuntu for some months, 6 months or anything. I try to do that in a serious way, but I am a beginner. So for me tonight, well, I'm as curious.
Testing the waters.
Yeah, I'm testing the water and I'm as curious, I think, as you are. Well, what I'm going to say, and I hope that I am able to formulate it in the right way, is Ubuntu can't be missed in the context of South Africa. It simply is there, and if you look into the programs for good care and for welfare, you always find the reference to Ubuntu. And I thought, if you are a professor of presence, you should be present in this context. So you shouldn't have an in-order address on your things in the Netherlands. I decided you should be a professor here. So talk about what they are talking about. So I got in problems by doing so. I studied Ubuntu. I feel very sympathetic for Ubuntu, and I feel critics. I have read critics. I am critical about Ubuntu. So what I'm trying to say in the end is, I want to contribute to Ubuntu. And in order to make it plausible that I want to do it, I want to do it with critics and I want to do it with the ethics of care, I will construe the common ground. And
between ethics of care and Ubuntu.
Yes, exactly. And I think the common ground is Ubuntu is, from the beginning to the end, relational thinking. And the ethics of care is relational thinking. So I would say there is, but all the difference in context and in philosophy, there is a common place. We don't put on the foreground autonomy. We don't put on the foreground self-determination. I don't do it, and Ubuntu doesn't. So having a common ground, I start thinking. I am criticizing Ubuntu in a specific way. I do it not because I want to discard Ubuntu, but I want to strengthen Ubuntu. And I think that some of the critics can be, what shall we say, solved, or we can handle the problems if we try to merge the best things of Ubuntu with the best things of the ethics of care or the theory of presence. And I'm going to point to a few things that I think if we could meet one another on those points, I think that Ubuntu is more appropriate for the complex society of South Africa, so not for the ancient South Africa where everything was simple and
contemporary, complex South Africa.
And that's why in the title I'm talking about late modern society, South African. And I think that Ubuntu may, in a specific way, enrich the ethics of care that is a product of Western thinking. And well, there are specific elements in Ubuntu that are so fruitful, I think, for discussions in the ethics of care. So that's in essence what I try to do, be critical to both, and say, but we are not enemies, not at all. We have a common ground. And just let's start with the common ground.
We are looking forward to your presentation, Andries, and I thank you for your friendship, your professional collegiality. We thank you for fascinating ideas, concepts, and we all look forward to tonight's lecture. Thank you.